Stand still. Don't move. Put that shovel on the ground right now, or I'll shoot you, a hoarse, threatening voice filled with tension and extreme fear rang out, shrill in the quiet, peaceful space of the backyard on a weekend evening. It was followed by the dry, cold, terrifying click of a Glock 17 semi-automatic pistol being loaded and ready to fire. The middle-aged man who was diligently and passionately planting a newly purchased David Austin rose was startled, almost dropping the precious plant to the ground. "Who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing breaking in here at this hour? Are you trying to steal something or something?" The man slowly, very slowly, put down the small garden shovel beside the rose. He had dug up, then slowly straightened up, trying not to make any sudden movements that might be misinterpreted. His hands were still covered in dark brown organic soil. He raised his head, squinting at the source of the aggressive voice under the warm yellow porch light that poured through the large glass windows of the house. He saw a tall figure in a police uniform pointing a pistol straight at him. It was a police officer, very young, his face boyish, but extremely tense and in his eyes. Besides the necessary professional vigilance, there was something else, an undisguised fear, and perhaps worse still, a touch of prejudice, a hasty judgment based on inaccuracies. What the hell was going on here? He was in his own garden, a private and safe space on a peaceful Saturday evening, doing something he loved doing, tending to his plants, a hobby that helped him relieve stress. After a tiring day at work, and now without warning, without any clear reason, he was being treated like a dangerous thief, an illegal intruder, and even threatened with death. And the young policeman who was trembling as he pointed his gun at an innocent citizen in his own home. Did he know that he was standing before someone who could change his whole life and his fledgling career with just a few words, a few decisions? It had all started out fairly normally, even casually, about an hour earlier on an early summer, Saturday evening in Sacramento. The capital of California, the weather was pleasant, the air warm, the scent of jasmine from nearby gardens and the night sky, clear dotted with countless twinkling stars. California Governor Jonathan Sterling, one of the most powerful and influential politicians, not only in the state, but also in the entire United States. A man whose name and image are often on the national news, who is being speculated by political analysts and the media as a potential bright candidate for the race to the White House in the upcoming presidential election, is enjoying some rare, precious personal relaxation time at his official residence, an elegant ancient mansion located in a secure and isolated residential area. After a week of intense work, with a series of cabinet meetings, state congressional hearings, tough policy negotiations, and important decisions that have profound impacts on the lives of tens of millions of people, being able to return home, away from the constant scrutiny and stalking of the media and the heavy pressure of politics, is for him an extremely precious thing that he always cherishes that evening. After a cozy light dinner with his beloved wife, Martha Sterling, and their 2 teenage daughters, Governor Sterling decided to go to the backyard to personally plant some precious roses that his wife had just bought from a famous nursery. He has a special love for gardening, a passion that has followed him since childhood for him, cultivating the land with his own hands. Taking care of each tree and blade of grass is not only a personal hobby, but also an effective spiritual therapy. A way for him to reconnect with nature, with the simple, genuine things of life, to find peace, tranquility in his soul, and the necessary balance after long days of facing complex problems, dry numbers, and the intrigues and calculations of the political world. He wore an old moss green t-shirt that had faded from repeated washing, a pair of faded baggy jeans that were torn in several places at the knees, and a pair of thick-soled, muddy, green rubber garden boots. He did not wear his usual expensive Patek Philippe watch, nor did he carry the highly secure cell phone that was always with him. He only had a small gardening shovel, a pair of worn-out canvas gloves, and an endless passion for plants and flowers. Under the warm, soft, yellow light, shining through the large windows of the living room and dining room, the figure of the powerful governor diligently dug the soil-mixed organic fertilizer, then gently placed each rose root in the hole, piled the soil, and watered it carefully, meticulously, and affectionately. His appearance at this moment, if a stranger happened to see him, would certainly not be able to recognize that this is one of the most powerful men in America. He looks no different from an ordinary gardener, A middle-aged man who loves manual work finds joy in simple things. The back garden of the governor's residence is quite large, designed in a classic English style with lush green lawns, colorful rose bushes, and meticulously trimmed ornamental trees. The entire garden is surrounded by a dense green hedge, taller than a person's head, creating a private, isolated, and extremely quiet space, a peaceful oasis in the middle of the noisy city. However, due to a minor technical problem with the security system, a few days ago, a few modern infrared surveillance cameras installed in the far corner of the garden, near the fence area adjacent to an abandoned vacant lot next door, were temporarily broken, and the security engineering team had not yet arrived to repair or replace them. And perhaps it was this seemingly insignificant incident, this temporary security gap, that unintentionally led to a disastrous and dangerous misunderstanding. Later on, as Governor Sterling was busy with the last of his apricot yellow David Austin roses, a favorite of his wife, he suddenly heard a strange noise, a rustling, the sound of dry branches snapping from the thick green hedge at the end of the garden. He raised his head, squinting, trying to see through the dense darkness that enveloped the area. In the dim moonlight of the early summer night, he caught a glimpse of a figure trying to climb over the fence from the abandoned weed-covered vacant lot next door, an act that was clearly illegal and suspicious. Governor Sterling's first instinct, a man trained in personal security, was to think that it might be a burglar trying to break into his residence, or worse, someone with bad intentions, someone who wanted to cause trouble or attack his family, but instead of screaming for help or rushing back into the house to seek help from his guards. Governor Sterling, with the calm and courage of a man who had faced many more dangerous and stressful situations in his political career, decided to approach cautiously to assess the situation himself. He held a small garden spade firmly in his hand, not with the intention of attacking, but simply to defend himself if the situation became truly dangerous. As he had just approached the fence, a few steps, the figure had just clumsily jumped down into the garden, and immediately, almost by reflex, the figure raised something black, glittering in the moonlight, and pointed it straight at him. "Stand still, don't move. Put that shovel on the ground right now, or I'll shoot you." It was a young voice, but it was hoarse and trembling with tension, with fear, and in the dim, distant light of the porch light, Governor Sterling finally recognized that it was a police officer wearing the distinctive dark blue uniform of the Sacramento Police Force, and that the object he was pointing at him was, without a doubt, a standard issue. Police pistol. Governor Sterling was startled. His heart skipped a beat, but he tried to keep himself absolutely calm. He slowly, very slowly, put the garden shovel down on the ground, then carefully raised his hands to shoulder level, palms out in front of him, so that the young policeman could clearly see that he was completely unarmed and had no intention of resisting. "Who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing in here at this hour? Do you know where this is?" The young cop, whose plastic name tag read Officer J. Miller, demanded, his voice still shaky and filled with suspicion. He looked like he had just graduated from the police academy and was new to the force, still relatively inexperienced in handling real-world situations. "Good evening," Officer Governor Jonathan Sterling said, his voice low, warm, and even trying to sound as calm and gentle as possible. To reassure the nervous and slightly panicked young policeman, "I am the owner of this house, and this is my backyard. What happened, officer? Why are you here?" Officer Miller seemed to be in disbelief. He narrowed his blue eyes, looked Governor Sterling over, and then glanced around the large, luxurious garden. The governor's appearance, with his soiled gardening clothes, muddy rubber boots, and a face streaked with sweat and dirt, was nothing like the image of the powerful, elegant governor he had seen on news reports and campaign posters. "The owner," Officer Miller sneered, a laugh full of suspicion and contempt. "Don't try to make it up to me. I got a 911 call about an armed, suspicious person trying to enter the governor's private residence, and you look more like a gardener sneaking around in the night than the owner of a fancy house like this, my friend." Officer Miller's blatant contempt and hasty judgment made Governor Sterling feel a little uncomfortable and frustrated. But he tried to remain calm and patient. He knew that the police officer was under high stress and would likely act rashly if provoked. "Officer Miller," the governor said, his voice calm, "I fully understand your caution and sense of responsibility, but let me assure you once again, I am Jonathan Sterling, the incumbent governor of the state of California. There must have been some huge misunderstanding here, or a false alarm. Governor Sterling, Officer Miller let out another long laugh, this time filled with mockery, contempt, and utter disbelief. If you're Governor Sterling, then I'm the President of the United States, old man. Don't try to act with me. I know your tricks impersonating other people to commit crimes and fraud. Officer Miller's stubborn, opinionated, and prejudiced attitude was starting to wear on Governor Sterling's patience. He couldn't believe that a police officer could behave in such an unprofessional and stupid manner. Officer, I really don't have time to stand here and argue with you. I request that you contact your immediate superior or call my security team stationed at the front gate of the residence. They will immediately confirm my identity for you. Call who? Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? Officer Miller smirked a smug look on his boyish face to me. You're just some suspicious guy trying to fool the police and get out of jail now. Turn around. Put your hands on the fence. I'm going to search you thoroughly. Governor Jonathan Sterling let out a frustrated sigh. He knew the situation was becoming pointless and somewhat ridiculous, but he didn't want to escalate things any further, didn't want to do anything that could endanger either side. He slowly, deliberately turned around, placing both hands on the green fence as the policeman had requested. Officer Miller cautiously moved closer, his gun still pointed at the governor's back, and began a rough and disrespectful one-handed search of the governor's person. He patted his pockets, his back, his sides, searching for weapons or anything suspicious. Nothing on you, Officer Miller muttered to himself, sounding disappointed and puzzled. You must have hidden the tools of your trade. Somewhere in this garden, I'll have to search thoroughly. Just then, from the main house, a familiar female voice filled with worry and a little panic rang out, breaking the tension. Jonathan, are you out there? Honey? I just heard a strange noise in the garden. It was Martha Sterling, the First Lady of California, wife of Governor Jonathan Sterling. She was wearing a cream silk nightgown, her long blonde hair flowing over her shoulders, and she quickly stepped out onto the porch, a small flashlight in her hand. And when she saw clearly what was happening before her eyes, her beloved husband being held at gunpoint by a young police officer in their own backyard, she let out a loud scream of horror and disbelief. Oh my God, Jonathan, what's going on? Are you okay? Officer Miller jumped when he heard that shrill scream. He quickly turned his head, and when he saw an extremely elegant, noble woman with the salty beauty of middle age standing on the porch, her face full of panic and anxiety, he began to feel that something was really wrong. A vague sense of unease began to creep into his mind. Who are you? Officer Miller asked, his voice now slightly confused and lacking in confidence. I am Martha Sterling, wife of the Governor of California. Martha replied loudly, her voice full of anger and no fear. And who are you? Why are you pointing a gun at my husband in our home? Officer Miller was stunned. The governor's wife, her husband. Could it be that this man in the dirt, stained gardening clothes, the man he had just called old boy, the man he had just tried to search, so roughly was actually Governor Jonathan Sterling? Officer Miller's face changed rapidly from his initial confident, arrogant, and haughty expression. It now turned to confusion, then to utter astonishment, and finally to a terrible fear, a belated regret that began to invade his entire young mind. He slowly, tremblingly lowered the gun in his hand, stammering, Sir, ma'am, I really don't know. I just received an urgent report. Governor Jonathan Sterling turned slowly, looking straight into Officer Miller's eyes, which were wide with fear. His usual, gentle, easygoing demeanor had completely disappeared, replaced by a stern, cold, and undeniable authority of a national leader. Officer Miller, the governor, said, his voice low, even, and full of weight, each word like a hammer, blow to the young policeman's conscience. I think you have made a very, very serious mistake this evening, a mistake that you will probably regret for the rest of your life. Officer Miller's whole body trembled, the gun in his hand almost slipped out and fell to the ground. He knew that he had caused a great disaster that could not be undone then. As if on cue, the governor's personal guard, Captain David Johnson, a veteran SEAL, and several other guards dressed in civilian clothes, but armed at the ready, rushed out of the front gate of the residence and moved swiftly toward the back garden. They heard Martha screams over the intercom and immediately realized something was wrong. Governor, are you okay?" Mr. Johnson asked, his voice filled with worry and tension as he saw Officer Miller standing there with his gun in his hand, albeit lowered. "I'm fine, Johnson. No big deal." The governor replied, his voice softening somewhat. "But perhaps you should explain to Officer Miller here who he just pointed his gun at and what security procedures he violated by entering here." Without coordination, Mr. Johnson turned to Officer Miller with a glare, a cold, terrifying glare. "Kid, do you know what a stupid thing you just did? Do you know you just pointed a gun at the governor of California, the head of state? Are you crazy? Do you want to go to jail?" Officer Miller was as white as a sheet, unable to stand his legs, almost giving way. He knew that his young police career and perhaps the bright future that lay ahead had come to a tragic end right here in this rose garden. The incident in which Officer Miller accidentally pointed his gun at Governor Jonathan Sterling caused a huge uproar within the Sacramento Police Department and the governor's security detail. After Governor Sterling calmly and professionally reported the entire incident to Miller's immediate superior, an urgent internal investigation was launched that night. Officer Miller was immediately suspended indefinitely and faced severe disciplinary action from the police department, including possible dismissal and revocation of his license for gross, unprofessional conduct, dangerous abuse of authority, and failure to follow basic operational procedures in handling the situation for Governor Jonathan Sterling. It was an unpleasant evening, a rare and somewhat unbelievable incident, but it was also a stark reminder of the challenges and potential dangers that law enforcement officers face every day, as well as the paramount importance of thorough training. Close supervision and continuous professional development to avoid regrettable mistakes and thoughtless actions that can have serious consequences, not only affecting the lives and property of innocent people, but also seriously damaging the reputation and image of an entire force. He did not seek harsh, devastating punishment for Officer Miller because he understood that part of the blame for this incident was due to the immaturity, inexperience, and perhaps the stress of a young police officer facing a situation he perceived as dangerous. Instead, Governor Sterling had a serious meeting with the leadership of the Sacramento Police Department and asked them to immediately enhance and improve their training programs on accurate situational awareness, the ability to control emotions in stressful situations, and especially on absolute respect for the constitutionally protected civil rights. The profound lesson learned from this dramatic and humorous story is that caution, professionalism, and the ability to judge situations objectively are extremely important for those who are empowered to enforce the law, assessing a situation based solely on personal prejudices. Temporary emotions or a person's appearance can lead to serious mistakes, not only causing harm to innocent people, but also undermining the community's trust in justice and the fairness of an entire system at the same time. This story also shows that even those in the highest positions of power in society can become victims of misunderstandings, of blind prejudices. That it is important to always maintain calmness, clarity, and altruism to solve problems in the best, most constructive way for the common good of the whole community. What do you think of Governor Jonathan Sterling's response to Officer Miller pointing a gun at him and being unreasonably suspicious? Was his calmness, patience, and attempt to calmly explain the situation the most appropriate and wise course of action? Should he have done something else? Are the consequences Officer Miller faces, including suspension and possible termination, really commensurate with the seriousness of the mistake he made? Do you think Governor Sterling's decision not to pursue harsh, devastating punishments for the young officer was the right one, demonstrating selflessness and foresight as a leader? Thank you for joining us on this unbelievable journey of mistaken identity and institutional bias. Governor Sterling's ordeal forces us to ask, if this can happen to a state leader, what does it mean for everyday citizens? His choice to demand training reform over retaliation shows true leadership, but the real victory would be a world where no one needs political clout to be treated with basic respect. If this story made you angry, inspired you, or reminded you of your own experiences, let us know in the comments and tag someone who needs to see this stark reality. Subscribe to Hopeful Horizon for more hard-hitting stories that challenge the status quo. Because change starts when we stop looking away.